What's going on, New York Giants fans? Welcome back to another video. You guys know the drill. If you guys haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification button so you get notified when a live stream pops video drops. Last minute thing, so no green screen, but that should be returning later in the week. More roster bubble videos later in the week as well. So, in terms of this roster bubble video, the next candidate is B.J. Hill, our friend from the 2018 NFL Draft, the third round pick, the 69th overall pick, and he was at NC State. Had a very impressive rookie year. We'll go into it just a little bit before we get into the competition and stuff like that. But in 2018, after Damon Harrison was traded from the Giants to the Lions for a fifth-round selection that I think ended up being Ryan Connolly, or was traded in that DeAndre Baker deal, he got more playing time as the games went on, and obviously it showed. He got his first sack. I believe it was on Drew Brees or Deshaun Watson. And then later in the season, he had that 3-sack game against the Chicago Bears. So obviously after Snacks was traded, a lot of Giants fans were hyped up by Hill because, oh my God, a third-round pick. We didn't expect to see this out of him, stuff like that. And mind you, that it was supposed to be a winning year for the New York Giants. They expected to keep Snacks, but because of the way they started at 1-7, they said, okay, we got to rebuild this thing, ship everybody out that's not going to be a part of the future. And Damon Harrison was not a part of the future. I'm pretty sure he's still a free agent to this day. Hope he's doing well. But my point is that Hill, he played better as the season went on. And a lot of Giants fans, including myself, hyped him up for 2019. Hey, better season, stuff like that. We were getting our hopes up. But unfortunately, his playing time dropped about later in the season, and just overall, his production dropped. He only had 1 sack. He started 5 games. He started 12 his rookie season, but he only started 5 the following season in 2019. He had 36 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 tackles for a loss. If I didn't mention already, he only had 1 quarterback sack, which I believe was on Dwayne Haskins in Week 17 against the Washington Redskins football team, name redacted, whatever the hell you want to call them. So what happened in terms of his playing time was later in the season, around the trade deadline, the Giants traded for a guy. That guy is also known as Leonard Williams. He took the spot, and he was next to Tomlinson. He was playing by Lawrence. So B.J. Hill's days, to some Giants fans, were numbered. And it was really interesting, is he going to get cut in 2020 with the new coaching staff? That's what a lot of people pose those questions coming into 2020 and training camp and stuff like that. And especially for the fact that we weren't seeing stuff, but we were getting reports from the beat media. We really didn't have an idea as to what was going on. But it seemed like in 2020, now this is just my opinion, I'm pretty sure I got his projection right, meaning that I said last year they were not cutting B.J. Hill on my 53-man, which should come out later this week if I haven't mentioned it already. But I said he was going to stay on the roster for depth purposes, stuff like that. And I was right about that because from what I saw last year, now I forget some of the guys that he was competing with, he didn't really have any, competition. And this year, it's only maybe a tiny bit better in terms of competition. There's one guy that's been standing out. We'll talk about him. But Hill, his playing time has went down over the years. You take a look at the snap percentages, 59% in 2018, his rookie year, and his sophomore year, 44%. And then the first season with Joe Judge, Patrick Graham, and all the other guys, 35%. So that's obviously not good in terms of B.J. Hill. And they were expecting big things out of this guy, or at least somewhat of production out of B.J. Hill, especially after the rookie season he had. Coming onto the scene and then late in the season having that production, a lot of Giants fans and I bet Giants staffers were disappointed. But, I don't know if there's a reason to cut him after the preseason. Possibly there is, depending on competition, but I think his contract ends after the year, so you could say, hey, listen, we're going to carry you as a backup defensive line piece. If you show us stuff, great, you could get re-signed. If not, then you're out the door. That pretty much looks like the status of B.J. Hill, kind of the future for him, in my opinion. Now you take a look at his competition, and I already said that it really hasn't been much over the last couple of years. Elijah Qualls, who they picked up. I think his first NFL season was in 2017. He has not played since then in terms of, regular season. He was with the Eagles. He won a Super Bowl with them. He had a total of 6 games played and 4 tackles with 1 quarterback hit. So obviously barely anything out of him, but he obviously played on the roster enough to get a Super Bowl ring. Then you look at the next guy, William Henry, 7 tackles and a tackle for a loss in the preseason. I should mention it was 6 tackles for Elijah Qualls this preseason, 7 tackles and 1 for a loss for Henry. He obviously had that big tackle on 3rd down against the Jets, where I think the Jets punted and they got inside our 1, and then Clayton Thorson got sacked for a safety, and the rest is history. But obviously that's where he is remarked. He was a former 4th-round pick out of Michigan for the Ravens. Obviously didn't work out. His last season was actually under Robert Saleh last year with the 49ers. He only played in a game, though. And then 2019, at least according to Pro Football Reference, he did not play. 2018, he had 1 sack in 3 games with 1 quarterback hit. And then his rookie year in 2017, he started 3 games, appeared in 14, 2 fumble recoveries for 16 yards, 3.5 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, and 6 tackles for a loss. So I guess you could kind of compare it to B.J. Hill's rookie season in some sort of way. But the next guy has been talked about a lot within the last 2 preseason games, and he's starting to impress me. Maybe it's not on the stat sheet all the time, and we haven't been able to get the amount of pressures this guy's had or, quarterback hits or whatever. But this guy's name is David Moa, and I think he definitely is putting pressure on B.J. Hill to produce. And we haven't seen that out of Hill, obviously. Hill so far in this preseason only has 4 tackles, but David Moa has 6 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. If anyone remembers, that was like a botched snap or a botched handoff to one of the Jets running backs in week 1. Moa forces the fumble, but it's recovered by the Jets. And then you take a look at the last preseason game where Lauletta had that big 32-yard run, smacks it out of Lauletta's hands. Luckily for the Browns, it was recovered by them, but it was the end of the half, no time left, so they pretty much, did nothing with it. But that shows you that he's a ball-hungry defensive lineman. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no idea who David Moa was coming into camp. Like, who the hell is this? But he's made an impact. And what's going to stand out to me in the 3rd preseason game, obviously the starters will at least have a half. I'm going to look for if Hill or Moa plays with the 1s. Probably not. But if one of these 2 can stand out in the second half of the game in terms of the run defense or just getting to the passer, because in my opinion, from what I've seen in the last 2 weeks, that's been the problem. The Jets didn't really expose the Giants in that aspect. The Browns did. They allowed the Browns to get a total of 163 yards on the ground. A lot of Giant linebackers were not setting the edge, O'Shane Ximines to be specific, but there was just no pressure from the defensive line. I mean, you saw Moa making tackles on occasion, B.J. Hill not really doing anything, but, Moa is definitely, in my opinion, impressed more people than Hill has this camp. Now, obviously, once again, we're not in camp. We can only see the preseason games. We're not in camp because they have not let fans in. They won't do that. That's another story to discuss. But for what I'm saying right now, I think B.J. Hill is beating William Henry and Elijah Qualls in production. I don't think he's beating David Moa, honestly, because Moa's more noticeable on the field due to the eye test. He forced 2 fumbles, and I think his presence is just more known. Now, in terms of projections and predictions and stuff like that, I'm going to say he makes the roster. A lot of guys are predicting, Raymond Johnson's going to make the roster. I think the Giants, just as an early projection, they may have David Moa make the roster because of his impact on the defensive line for the second squad in the last 2 games. That's definitely a possibility. But I think B.J. Hill is a good depth piece to keep along as a rotational guy, just in case Austin Johnson, Dexter Lawrence, some of these other guys get injured. So I think they actually keep Hill and Moa. I don't think they keep Qualls. I don't think they keep William Henry. I think, And obviously, once again, there's a lot of guys out there that are rooting for Raymond Johnson. I'm rooting for the best players to make this roster, no doubt about it. But I think they want Raymond Johnson to get a bit of time and more development on the practice squad and try to lean him onto the practice squad and try to sneak him on there. Hopefully, in that case, if that does happen, a team doesn't pick him up on the waiver wire and he just sneaks to the Giants practice squad and they have a sneaky weapon on the defensive line on the practice squad in terms of depth and production and a young stud. We saw, he's put up multiple pressures and quarterback hits in training camp and especially in the preseason games. But in terms of experience, they'll need it. Definitely, Moa doesn't have any experience besides these 2 preseason games from what I know. And BJ Hill, he's had definitely a lot of preseason experience, and he's played all 16 games the last 3 years of his career, which are his first 3 years of his career. So I think, obviously, has Hill lived up to the hype of his rookie year? Of course not. We can all say that about a lot of draft picks from that year. But availability is definitely the best ability. And when you have a defense that has lost Dalvin Tomlinson and tried replicating his production with Danny Shelton and Austin Johnson, some of these other guys, and you're trying to maintain what was last year's run defense and building on the pass defense, and it might be an easier lane for BJ Hill to get to the quarterback this year because the secondary is going to be better, so it's not going to be BJ Hill, pushes back for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and the quarterback throws it to Isaac Yiadom. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the secondary will be one of the best in the NFL, in my opinion. And I'm saying that with huge amounts of confidence in this defense. And they're going to try to replicate last year, but fix some things and make it better. But what I'm trying to say about BJ Hill is that he's going to make a good depth piece, and I think the Giants will keep him along for the 2021 season. And then after the year, if his contract is indeed up, they'll say, hey, listen, it was great while it lasted, but unfortunately your production was not up to our standards, and that's pretty much it. But for this year, in my opinion, in my projection, he does stay on the roster, so look for that as a sneak peek for I think it's going to be Friday. The 53-man roster projection comes out, or it's going to be Saturday. But if you guys haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification buttons to get notified when the live stream pops, video drops. More of these coming out. Peace out, see you later, and stay cool.